But was a shirt pull from Matthijs de Ligt overlooked in this decision? This is a grey area right now. It's been some controversy after the game. It finished 2-2 in the end, and Manchester United came away with a point. But had Everton been given that penalty, things could have been different. They're 14th as it stands right now, just a point ahead of Manchester United. Let's hear what Ruben Amorim thought about that penalty incident.
I think what I saw, I didn't see quite well. Was a little bit soft touch, and we are in England, so you guys enjoy a lot the physicality of the game. I think was soft, and I think was clear to overturn the decision.
Well, here's what David Moyes has to say on the overturned penalty. He said, "I thought at the time the referee had made the right call. I'm really struggling to understand why it was sent to VAR." Don, did they get it right?
This one's caused an absolute stir, Kay, because whatever happened to referee's call, and the biggest problem that I think happened was when the referee went to the VAR showed him only one angle. They kept showing the same angle, which when you see that angle, which was the first one that we've just shown there, it doesn't look like there's any sort of touch. But when you see the incident from either the behind the goal camera or the high behind, there was a de Ligt shirt pull, then there was a Maguire shirt pull. So this one's very hard for the referee to try and determine in real time. But this is what I mean about referee's call. He thinks there's a penalty. He made what he thought was the right call. And I'm just going to hang on. So this here is not the angle. This here, you cannot see the back of Ashley Young. This was where you could see the shirt pull, but there was another angle from the left-hand side which showed a double shirt pull. So what I would say from an Ashley Young point of view, he went down like you wouldn't believe. His legs lifted up in the air. So probably when the referee's seen that again, he's probably had a little bit of doubt. But what I would say is when you see it from a completely different angle and you see de Ligt pull the shirt, then you see Maguire pull the shirt, in my opinion, I think that should have been a penalty for Everton.
Not for me. Listen, and at first look in real time, I thought, oh, that's a penalty. But I saw as they showed the replays, to me it looked like, and while, yes, de Ligt did have a hold of Ashley Young's shirt, it seemed to me like he was playing for the touch from Harry Maguire, like almost trying to tangle his legs with Harry Maguire, ended up kicking into the floor, and he went over. So I thought, and still think, Ashley Young kind of playing for that, ended up throwing himself over. So it was more about Ashley Young throwing himself over than anything to do with de Ligt and the shirt pull, which was fleeting. I don't think impeded him that much. So I think VAR interceding and well, at least calling the referee over to have another look, him changing his mind, I thought in the end they got it right.
I think this was a pretty simple process that was made complicated. Once they go over to see if there's any shirt pulling, which goes on all the time, they have to then define if that shirt tug, because it wasn't a drag, whether that tug was impactful and whether it really impeded the opponent. And in my opinion, to be quite frank with you, I think once he goes over to the monitor and looks at this, I think it's a clear dive from Ashley Young. I think it's a clear dive. As a player, unfortunately for him, he's got a reputation. He's not got a very cute way of throwing himself over. He's very obvious in the way he does it. And I think once the referee looked at that, for me, it was pretty simple. Yeah, there was a small tug, but there was a small tug, and then there was a horrendous attempt to win a penalty, which he didn't get. And I think that correct decision went in Man United's favour on that occasion.
Don?
Well, the laws of the game says about the referee's decision, there has to be a clear and obvious error from the referee. So once the referees give a penalty, is that a real clear and obvious mistake that he's made? I think it's very subjective. I think when you see it with different angles, as I said, I take the boys' points. I take Craig's point of being a dive. But when you have a double shirt pull, are you telling me that's a clear and obvious error from the ref? I don't think so.
See, this clear and obvious, and
drives me nuts.
Nothing to do with Don, because he's right.
Well, it is a law.
Because,
no, it's not the law. It's just wording.
No, I'm just saying you're absolutely right, because you hear that reference all the time. I don't know what clear and obvious means. Is it the right decision or is it not? That's all I'm interested in at this point. I think this clear and obvious wording is almost a get-out clause. There's a little bit of a grey area, and then they start added to that. They start throwing in low bar and high bar about intervening. All that for me just confuses the situation. If it's a right decision or a wrong decision. Now, we can have a discussion as to how long it takes, if you can't make a decision within 5 seconds or whatever. We could start discussing that. But from the time it becomes clear and obvious and these kind of phrasings that I feel are pretty empty, all it's doing is further confusing a situation that is already, while it's there to help the referees, I think not defining some of those categories a little bit more clearly just makes it all the more frustrating for the viewer.
It's a cop-out, isn't it? I keep, I'm not just saying because Don said
It's not done. It's not done.
I keep hearing this, and I bet they're talking about it, and back in the UK on radio and on TV, and well, it wasn't clear and obvious. Shaka's right. It drives you absolutely insane. All people want, right, is the right decision. Was it an infringement? Was it a free kick? Or was it not? Was it a dive or was it not? Was it a trip or was it not? It wasn't quite clear and obvious. Is it a foul? Is it an infringement or is it not? And when you look at this one, just as a generalisation, can you look at it and say it's a dive? I think you can. I think you can. So, it's black and white. Did the referee, even if he missed it or didn't miss it, was it crystal clear for him? He thought it was crystal clear. Did he give the penalty or did he not?
Give the penalty.
He gave the penalty. Yeah. So he thought it was clear. His decision. He goes to the monitor. He thinks to himself, well, that looks like a dive to me. He's not then going to say, well, but is that clear and obvious enough? He interpreted it as a dive. And that's the bottom. That's all fans want to know, I think, and people watching at home. They want to know, is it a foul or is it not? No. And once we have those two definements, it's a lot clearer. So I don't know why it keeps being muddied by this. He shouldn't have gone because it wasn't quite that scenario. Just get a decision right.
So are we saying a shirt pull's okay? Are we saying a shirt pull's okay in the box then?
You see a lot of little shirt pulls all the time. I mean, I'm not saying it's right or wrong, but it's defined by how long you hold on to the shirt, and we see it all the time. We can't. I don't think there was a tug on the shirt here, Don, by either player that resulted in Ashley Young going to ground. I think Ashley Young goes to ground because Ashley Young threw himself to the ground. That's certainly the way I saw it.
All right, so that's the game. It finished 1-1. There was no penalty in the end, but Manchester United did pick up a point.
It was 2-2.
Sorry, 2-2, of course it was. But a point each for both of them.
Oh, she was having a go at Lewis Garcia for mistakes.
Karma. Hey, can we talk about the first goal?
Karma coming back around. Yes,
can we talk about the first goal?
Can we talk?
Why? What about the first goal?
Can we talk about the first goal?
Yeah.
Well, the first goal. Have you ever seen a scenario where Man United lose 6 headers for Everton to score? Have you ever seen a scenario from a set play where a backline, whoever, loses 6 headers? How'd you lose 6 headers in a row? It's impossible.
The one thing
We've had that problem all season.
Don, they were absolutely horrendous in the first half, as I'm sure you know. I mean, defensively, this back three, the gaps down the side. I mean, Harry Maguire was horrendous. Matthijs de Ligt had just gone. I mean, if there was a Man United player standing 10 yards from him, he'd probably kick the ball out of play. I'm telling you, he could not pass the ball, and Everton knew that, and they pressed him. But this is what I'm not getting, is they scrambled back via a Jordan... And let's not forget, the Fernandes free kick comes about because his first free kick is probably 30 yards from goal, and Decore's in the wall. He puts his arm up, hits his arm outside the box. It's not a penalty. But there's then another free kick, 2 or 3 yards outside the box, so it's a much better position, and then Jordan Pickford, no matter what Shaq says, throws it in, because he shouldn't move. And he moved over to the side, right? He just shouldn't move. The wall's doing its job if he's going to sit upright, so that is absolutely on the goalkeeper. But let's not forget, right, Man United are in 15th, right? All and sundry are catching them, apart from the bottom 4. And when we talk about Ruben Amorim, and of course, the blame lies with a lot of different people, but he cannot escape any criticism for these constant, crappy, awful performances. David Moyes is perceived to have gone into Everton and made a difference. They had more wins in 5 weeks than they had, I think, in 5 months, unfortunately, under Sean Dyche. They were playing better football, they're winning games, they're competitive. He's made a difference. If David Moyes can make a difference at Everton, why is it okay for Ruben Amorim to not be able to make a difference at Man United? Are we just continually looking at the players? And I know the players need to step up. But he also has to take responsibility for keep putting the team out in the same formation and getting the same results, the same performances. So if other managers in different leagues come in with inferior squads and make a difference, why is there a pass for Ruben Amorim?
A couple of things about Amorim. Well, certainly coming into this one, him saying, yeah, listen, David Moyes is doing a far better job than me. Listen, I don't get it. And we spoke about Amorim in weeks gone by, talking about how bad Manchester, this is the worst Manchester United team ever, and just being, I don't understand that tactic. I don't understand that tactic of being as negative as he has been about his, whether it's true or not. I don't understand the tactic. Then coming into this one, understanding where Everton are, or more to the point, were, what you've been given and tasked with to come in now and then say that before the game. The other thing to this, and this is where I give a lot of the Manchester United players some credit in the second half. I have not seen a man look as beaten, a manager look as beaten coming out for a second half as Amorim looked, retaking his seat on the sideline at Old Trafford. Now, you're 2-0 down. I expect you're going and you've read the riot act, and maybe he has. But you now have to be up for the fight. You have to show your players that you're up for the fight. He comes and takes a seat on the sideline, and I cannot tell you when last I've seen a manager look as beaten. So I give Manchester United players credit in the second half for their response, because his body language suggested to me that it wasn't coming. And maybe, as Craig pointed out, maybe Jordan Pickford had a little bit to do with that. You kindly disagree on who is at fault or who takes the credit. But give Manchester United some credit for a second half display that I don't think the manager had an awful lot to do with.
Ruben Amorim looks to me like a man that would take a payoff and a one-way ticket back to Portugal and just move on. And just move on with his career, because he's lumbered them. He's found himself in a mire with this club, with this squad of players, and he's, as I said, he's not without blame because he's setting the tactics. But let's not forget about the bigger picture here. As they sit in 15th, Manchester United in 15th, no team in the Premier League they are safe against, none. Is the Glazers, who still own the club, have riddled that club with debt and taken money out of it for fun, right? For years, and that's been evident. But they've pulled off an even better stroke in the last 18 months or so. They've had Ineos's pants down with what they've done. Ineos have gone in there. They have no idea what they're doing, and they've spent their investment, I believe, was around 1.25 billion initially, and they've gone in there. The morale is horrendously low. They're firing low-level employees. They're all over the shop. It's terrible. Before you even get to the footballing side of it, it is terrible. So between the Glazers and Ineos, there is not a clear directive of how this club, if you saw the accounts this week, was just one thing. They are in a position that I don't think anybody would have thought of quite a few years ago. So there's two parties to blame here. The Glazers are well to blame, and I think Ineos, they had no idea how damaging things were behind the scenes before they chucked all that money in.
Okay, so
Apart from
that, it's all right.
Apart from that, I mean, how can Man United sit in the 15th and only be looking because there's four really poor teams below them, at least, you know, and Wolves have just won against Bournemouth. Only for that reason are they probably safe from being in a relegation dogfight. I mean, that's a hell of a position to be in.
Okay, you get the final thought on this clash, Don?
I mean, Craig's absolutely nailed it from the hierarchy and from the top end of the club. I mean, you could do a whole show on it, and we probably will or have. I think now if you're Ruben Amorim, you've got to find somehow winning the Europa League and trying to get Champions League football, because apart from that, it's going to be an absolutely disaster show.